Hodges. Welcome to Chattanooga Self-Improvement Meetup, a mastermind group where we listen, learn, ask questions, and comment in an effort to help make each other the best version of ourselves, thus helping to make the world a better place in which to live. Our guest speaker today is my new friend, Dean Wegner, founder and CEO of Authentically American, a veteran-owned American-made premium apparel brand. The company celebrates patriotism, believes in the American worker, and honors our American heroes by intentionally donating 10% of profits to veteran and first responder charities. Dean is a West Point graduate. He served 7 years as a helicopter pilot and Army Ranger, and holds an MBA in finance from Cal State. A majority of his business career was spent in business development, marketing, and strategy with Mars Incorporated and Procter & Gamble. As a former Division I ice hockey player, he's highly competitive and possesses a tireless work ethic. His primary focus is on growth, team building, and creating a winning culture. Dean is happily married to his bride of 25 years, and they have 4 children, with the youngest being adopted from Ethiopia. Dean is active in his church and has served on the board of several nonprofit and non-profit companies. Let's give a warm virtual welcome to our new friend, Dean Wegner. Dean, it's all yours, buddy.
Well, Glenn, fantastic. It is so great to be here. And again, Bob, it's all your fault if no one's happy today, or all credit to you if things go well. But Glenn, I need to update what you shared because my wife gets credit for another year putting up with me. Just 2 weeks ago, we celebrated anniversary number 26.
Well, congratulations.
Well, thank you. And it's early here in Nashville, an hour earlier, but I'll tell you, I could not be more fired up and honored to be a guest as an entrepreneur, somebody that values ingenuity, somebody that appreciates innovation and creative problem solving. I just love that I'm here as part of the mastermind. And I know, Glenn, part of my task is to share the journey I've been on, but I'm excited more for the end and the Q&A and just seeing what kind of discussions and thoughts and ideas that I'm going to get that will help make my business even stronger. So Glenn, I know we did the check, so let me see if I can share my screen and make sure it works here. Did that come up? Fantastic.
Yeah,
I got
looking
the thumbs
good.
up from Glenn. So Glenn had mentioned Authentically American and our vision to build this iconic American brand. Let me do this to set the mood, to set the tone. Let me go ahead and start with a brief 1-minute video.
What does it mean to be an American? Being an American means being free and protected by the men and women who sacrifice their lives to serve our country. It means giving back to the communities in which we live and work, and believing in the power of hard work and the American worker. It means treating other Americans with dignity and respect, even in the midst of disagreement. Being an American is an honor and a privilege. These American values are the foundation of Authentically American. As a veteran-owned company, we are a brand that celebrates patriotism and gives back to our American heroes. We are passionate about creating American jobs. Everything we produce is made in USA with no exceptions. We strive to represent the absolute highest level of quality in everything we do. Help build the America you want to see. Be Authentically American. Where's yours made?
All right. Well, guys, I'll tell you, being a veteran, being somebody that celebrates patriotism, that type of discussion, that imagery gets me fired up. And that is really the essence of our brand, Authentically American. And we've been at it now 3 years. And Christina, you'd mentioned being in the adolescent phase. We're still in the toddler phase. We just celebrated our 3-year birthday in July. So let me do this. To get started, let me go ahead and ask a few short questions, and it's related to our brand. So what I want to do is one of the most important things around a brand and when you're building a brand is that visual, that brand logo. So I'm going to flash a few logos up there, and the first one I already did, but if you know what it is, go ahead and just shout it out or just give a thumbs up. But the first one's a pretty easy one. I'm sure everyone knows this one, Nike. I mean, it's been around since 1964. It's now a $36 billion brand. So a few years later, anyone recognize this brand logo?
Polo.
Polo, yes. I mean, $6 billion brand. And I'll give you one more recently that was launched in 1996. How about this logo?
Under Armour.
Under Armour, that's right. Under Armour, and all three of these brands, iconic in their own right. And all three of these brands are in the apparel industry. So one more question for you, and it's related to the apparel industry, and that is, what percentage of apparel in the U.S. is made in the U.S.? What percent of apparel in the U.S. is made in the U.S.? And as you're given thoughts to number, most people are incredibly shocked when they see that it's only 2.7%.
I was going to say
less
10%.
than 3% is all that's made here in the U.S. And one of the things that we're fired up at Authentically American is our mission tied to our passion for job creation. And we really believe with what we're doing, we can make a difference and create some jobs in the process. So I do have one more question for you. Before getting the invitation, anyone recognize what this logo is? Most people had no idea.
Authentically
Marcia, you
American.
and Rich did because we talked before and we shared a few things, but it often hurts my feelings. I'm like, nobody knows who we are. But it's pretty understandable because, being a brand that's 3 years old, our biggest challenge, our biggest opportunity is getting the word out. So, Glenn, I didn't ask this before, but are there any attorneys in the group?
We have one that's sometimes here, but we don't have one today.
Well, good. We'll make fun of them. So I'll tell you a quick legal story. So if you can see that arrow, that highlights that circle R. And this is our external visual, our vintage U.S. flag. And it's now an officially approved U.S. Patent Office trademark. And that was an important step for me to have that legal protection for our brand mark. So I joke about the attorney because I'm so thankful we hired the right attorney because we sent this logo to the U.S. Patent Office for approval. What do you think they said?
Yes.
Len, they actually said, Rick had it, not just no, but they said, hell no. Dean, you can't patent this. It's the U.S. flag. And this is, again, why I was so thankful we had the right attorney. And the argument was more articulate than this. But in essence, he said, okay, how many stars are in the U.S. flag? There's 50. Well, Dean's flag, you can count them up. There's not 50. How many stripes are in the U.S. flag? 13. Well, count them up. There's not 13 in Dean's flag. And the argument was this is a unique artistic rendering of the U.S. flag, unlike anything else on the marketplace. And that's how the U.S. Patent Office bought that argument. And now it's an officially registered trademark. And that's important for us because think back to the quiz. I mean, everyone quickly recognized Nike and Polo and Under Armour. And that's what we want here for our brand logo to be ubiquitous. So one more here. So anyone remember the days when we used to stamp things made in USA?
Mm-hmm.
That was the idea behind this logo. This is our inside tag. So, my quarter zip that I'm wearing, there's an Authentically American tag. And the idea is that everything we do is stamped Authentically American to certify that it's American made. And you'll notice this also has the circle R, so it's an officially registered trademark as well. So last one, I'm curious, our tagline, "Where's yours made?" is designed to be provocative, designed to ask the question, and most people have no idea. Does anyone on the call know that they're wearing something American made? Marcia is. All right. Usually when we ask and we poll the audience and it's a much larger audience, it's oftentimes not just 3%, it's even lower. And that's really what we want to do is go ahead and create that change. And let me transition now. Let me go ahead and show you what my business plan looked like 4 years ago. It was a blank sheet of paper. I mean, literally, we started from a blank sheet of paper 4 years ago. And Bob, I got to tell you, I'm exhausted. because it's literally been brick by brick building the foundation. But when you start with a blank sheet of paper, you can be so intentional about who you are and what you stand for and our values. So let me share three things. So one is just the inspiration, some of the background and perspective behind our brand story, a little bit out of our supply chain since we're a consumer product, and then that target customer we're going after. So Glenn, you mentioned being married 25 years, which is now actually 26. So here's a picture of my family. And I share this for two reasons. You can see we have 4 kids. Our youngest son, we adopted from Ethiopia. And I share that because we want to build a culture that embraces diversity. I mean, you think of all the discussion right now in the news and all the violence and just, I mean, craziness that we're living in right now. And we want to do something different. We want to be a brand that celebrates patriotism. Authentically American. I mean, we believe that our country was founded on that melting pot principle. So, I mean, you think back, we were a country that was a group of outcasts, a group of immigrants that all came together to form this great nation, and it's one nation under God. The second reason I share is, as a new company, culture is so important. And we really want to build that family-like culture. And that culture means, as part of the family, we look out for each other. We have each other's back, but equally, when you're part of the family, there's not low expectations. I mean, we have high expectations for everyone. So let me transition as well. So this is a picture of me playing ice hockey back at West Point. And for anyone that knew me back then, it was a small miracle that I got into West Point, an even bigger one that I graduated. And anyone that knows a little bit about West Point, you've probably heard the words duty, honor, country. And West Point is such a value-centric organization, such a value-centric institution. And that was really something we wanted to build. Often companies have their values listed on a wall, and we wanted to be more than that. We wanted our values to truly mean something and be impactful. So next, I graduated West Point in 1993. And I can't tell you the fond memories I have of the men and women I served with that raised their right hand and said, I commit to preserve, protect, defend the Constitution of the United States, and really preserve the freedom that all of us on this call hold so dear. And it's this experience, those 7 years, that made the intentional choice to go ahead and donate 10% of our profits to veteran and first responder charities. So here's a picture from December 1994, and this is Ranger School. This is our graduation photo. And most of you likely aren't familiar with Ranger School, so let me just give you a brief overview. So there's a ton of military doctrine and tactics as part of Ranger School, but really at its core, it's a leadership course. And what they do is they deprive you of everything you think you need to survive, namely food and sleep. So for 72 days straight, you're living on 1 meal a day, you're living on 2 to 3 hours of sleep a night, and then just put under incredible mental and physical stress. And I didn't know it back then, but Ranger School was such great training for leading a startup. And when we started, there were 340 of us on day one. Fast forward 72 days later, there's 72 of us here. So let me show you a close-up of a picture of me on graduation. Do I look happy? I was not happy at all. It was absolutely miserable. But I'll tell you, that's why it was such great training for leading a startup, because right now, what's my life all about? It's no sleep and it's incredible stress. Now, fortunately, I'm getting to eat, but again, it was great training for leading a startup. So let me shift gears in my career. So after the Army, most of my career was spent in the consumer packaged good industry, working at Procter & Gamble, working on brands like Crest and Tide, and many of the household brands that you see pictured here. Also spent a number of years in business development, sales, marketing, and strategy at Mars. So Bob, you probably know that Mars is headquartered, the North American headquarters for pet care is right here in Franklin, Tennessee. And both Procter & Gamble and Mars are just world-class marketing and branding organizations. And that's where, a lot of the game plan that came together was from the training that was received here. So up until now, you've heard nothing about apparel and nothing about being an entrepreneur. And in 2012, this was my first entry into the entrepreneurial world. It was my first entry into apparel. And in 2012, bought a company, Omega Apparel, and it had a great niche producing dress uniforms for the military. So if you see this image here, you see those trousers that those gentlemen are wearing. I mean, those are trousers that we made, and our business model was government contracts and producing thousands of uniforms every week. And one of the things I'm most passionate about is job creation. And the idea was to win more contracts. And the thinking was when we win more contracts, we create more jobs. But I started to have an epiphany. And I realized that the size of the military is not really changing. So if we win contracts, we don't really create jobs. We just outbid another supplier. And that's where the light bulb went off. And Glenn, this is where the vision started to build. And this is where we thought, instead of being in the contract business, what if we're in the brand business? What if instead of producing overseas like 97% of the apparel, what if we made an intentional choice and produced here in the US? And in 2017, my partner and I had different visions on the future. He wanted to focus on government contracts, and I ultimately wanted to create jobs. I wanted to make a difference, and ultimately, if we're successful, leave a legacy. And in July of 2017, that's when we launched Authentically American. And one of the initial focuses, Marcia, with your doll, it was product. I mean, we have to have amazing product. And that was one of the benefits of leading that company for 5 years, because I really had an opportunity to learn the apparel industry. And this was a blank map 3 years ago. Now you can see 12 different states pictured. And we produce all across the US and only here in the US. So we've got amazing t-shirts that we produce in Texas. The polo and quarter zip that I'm wearing, made in California. We have incredible socks that are Carolina cotton, knit in Carolina. So all across the US and only here in the US. So I'm dating myself, but anyone remember this commercial, the old Miller Lite? Marcia's on her head, so it was all about taste great, less filling. And I've often wrestled with is, are people buying Authentically American because this is a great story or amazing product? And what we've really decided and what I've really heard is there is no one that is buying from Authentically American just because we're American made. And we are a consumer product. So first and foremost, we have to have an incredible product experience. And Glenn, hope this is okay, but I'm going to go kindergarten style and do a quick show and tell.
Sounds good.
So the number one apparel item in the US and around the world is the t-shirt. In the US alone, there's 3 billion t-shirts sold every year. So I wish we were there in person, because you could see and touch and feel, and you'd be like, Dean, this t-shirt, it's incredibly soft. If you felt the print, I mean, we only use water-based ink, so on a hot Tennessee summer day, it doesn't stick to your chest. When you wash it, it doesn't crack. Of course, it's American made, and everything we do is tagless. But we have this new innovation, and this is our sweat-activated print innovation. And this really highlights our goal, our vision to deliver just an incredible product experience. So this is a one that's near and dear to me. This is a Go Army, so a West Point t-shirt. And at West Point, it's all about Go Army, beat Navy. And I'm going to simulate that I'm exercising, but we're going to spray it. So you can see this is sweat activated, moisture activated. When you sweat, this hidden message appears. So beat Navy appears. So if you go on the back, there is our vintage US flag. And even in larger, that beat Navy appears. And I've got to tell you, Marcia, I see you there like, wow, that's the feedback. That's the response we've had. People like, Dean, first and foremost, it's just an amazing t-shirt. But when that hidden message appeared, it was just like, wow. And this was really a home run from a product standpoint that we were missing, because we have amazing quarter zips, we have amazing socks, ball caps, everything we do, but we needed something so unique and so differentiated. And this has really been a home run. So now there's been hundreds and hundreds of custom designs, whether it's for other colleges and high schools, whether it's for fitness centers and charities, whether it's for sports teams. So across the board, just a great highlight to the product experience we're trying to deliver. So one big question mark I had is who's going to be our target customer? And one of the things I learned at Procter & Gamble and Mars, if you're going to build a brand from scratch, it's incredibly difficult because you don't have an audience. I mean, nobody knows who you are. And I was wrestling with that question. I thought back to some of the experience I had. Anyone recognize this brand, Swiffer? Probably most everyone has it at home. And this was a brand that was launched in 2002 when I was at Procter & Gamble. And I still remember to this day, the year one marketing budget alone was 100 million. 100 million. And Bob, I don't know about you, but I have nowhere near that kind of money. So I was really wrestling with, okay, a pretty clear vision in my mind on what I want Authentically American to be about. We've got some amazing product in the supply chain we've built, but how do we get the word out? And as I was doing my due diligence, I started to realize that, companies, if you're a veteran, you likely recognize USAA, a Fortune 100 insurance company. I mean, just an amazing company. They're now a client of ours. If you're in Nashville, you may recognize Barge Design Solution. They're a 500-person engineering firm. If you've ever stayed at a DoubleTree hotel, you've likely experienced a Christie cookie. So all of these are clients of ours. Same thing from a college standpoint. If you go to any bookstore of any college campus, you're going to find apparel. And you're going to find all kinds of brands, but you're not going to find anything American made. So we have West Point, we have all the service academies, we have Vanderbilt, Lipscomb. We've got a lot of different colleges now that we've added. We're also in the charity business. And one intentional choice, Glenn, that we've made, when we partner with a charity, we provide our goods and services at cost. So here's pictured a few different veteran and non-veteran charities, and one specific here, Bob, to Tennessee, Operation Stand Down, Tennessee. And here's what I started to realize. I don't have to go ahead and build an audience from scratch. The idea is I can go where audiences already exist. And that whole group together, businesses, schools, charities, it's an $8 billion market. $8 billion. So if you're a business owner, you're looking to buy a polo with your company logo, you can choose Nike, you can choose Land's End, you can choose Under Armour, but there is no American-made option. That was the idea. Instead of building an audience from scratch, we'll go ahead and give a business owner a choice, a high-quality American-made choice that's competitively priced. And our goal, we really want to be your new favorite brand. We have to have an amazing product experience. We want you to then, after you see our product and say, Dean, forgets where it's made. I mean, it's just an incredible product. And then you look at the tag and see that it's American made. Then you go to our website, authenticallyamerican.us, and start to read about our brand story, read about the ethos. Then you're like, I'm liking this brand. This is values that align with me. And then, one of the things that we have really fought to overcome is that stereotype that American made. Aaron, we were joking, you're homeless. I mean, you don't have money to go ahead and buy, something that's incredibly expensive. So we've got to be competitively priced. And if you're buying a known national brand, whether it's Nike, Under Armour, Land's End, we're also competitively priced. So let me talk about something that's near and dear to me, and that's the idea of servant leadership. I mean, this is something that is founded in my Christian faith. It was reinforced in the military. And, this is a picture of my leadership team. And occasionally they will say, Dean, thank you for your vision, because we wouldn't be here today without you. And I'm very quick to point out that, guys, it has nothing to do about me right now. It's all about you. Because in 2 years from now, the only reason we're going to be here is because of these three people right here. And in 10 years from now, Trip, the only reason we're going to be here is because of the teams that we build and embracing this servant leadership mindset. Let me shift gears now, and given it's 2021, and here we are virtually, being able to have this discussion, I would be remiss if I didn't touch on technology. So this is our technology stack, and you can see different things that you likely recognize. Our CRM systems, HubSpot. Our e-commerce platform is Shopify. Our mini ERP-like system is TradeGecko. We have our accounting system tied to Xero. So, this is where it all comes together. And this is so important for us because as a startup with limited funds, we can't be spending a lot of money that we don't have. So we're going to more than double our business this year, but we're only going to add about 30 to 40% headcount. And this is the answer why. This is all about technology and how we can go ahead and automate and have systems and process that will start to do a lot of the work for us. So next thing let me touch on, and this is if you went to our website, you'd see about our vision to build this iconic American brand, this billion-dollar brand. You'd see our mission to create American jobs, but what you'd also see is our values. And I've got to tell you a little secret. When you're small, it means nothing. It means nothing because there's no accountability. No one's really taking a look at you. And let me tell you a little bit story how very early on, this belief about our values meaning something was really tested. So, this started with national media. So we've been incredibly blessed, far more national media exposure than we ever deserve. Had a feature story in Forbes magazine. I've been on Fox and Friends twice. Had a story on Yahoo Finance, Newsmax TV, SiriusXM. So just incredible national media exposure. And the very first national media exposure was in September of 2018, a little over 1 year when we were in business, and got a call from a Fox and Friends producer saying, Dean, would love to have you on Fox and Friends, and we'd like to coincide it with September 12th. And I'd never been on national TV before. So I got to tell you, I was incredibly nervous. And I thought, what in the world are they going to ask? So I was wrestling around, and 3 days before I reached out to the producer and said, could you give me the questions you're planning to ask? And Glenn, she laughed at me. She's like, we don't give you the questions. We want it to be spontaneous. We want it to go ahead and just be a great, lively discussion. And what I decided to do was invite my friend, Darrell Waltrip. If you're a NASCAR fan, Darrell Waltrip, he's a NASCAR Hall of Famer, and he is a TV legend. I see Rick, giving a thumbs up, just a great American. So I asked him to join me. And here's where it continues. So it was September 12th, a day after 9/11. So the idea was to share our feel-good American story. But then 3 days before that, Nike launched their Kaepernick campaign. And I was wrestling with what in the world was going to happen. And let me show you the last minute of a question that they asked and see how that went.
You're not going to pick up many pieces of apparel that has made in the USA. These products, every one of them, across the board, are all made in this country.
But what about
by
a company
American
like
workers.
Nike saying, we're going to market the idea that you don't have to stand for the flag?
Well, I don't agree with that.
I sense that.
I don't agree with that at all. It's unfortunate that we're in that situation, or that the NFL is.
And I believe, good or bad, we are defined by the choices we make. And we're being very intentional in the choices we make. And, a simple thing about Stan, I also am an American, believe in the Constitution, and, freedom of speech, freedom of expression. So I don't need to talk about what everyone else is doing. What I can talk about is what we do. And a simple thing about Stan, my background with our family, when we're talking to the kids and somebody walks in, what do we ask them to do? We ask them to stand and shake hands and look them in the eye, and that's a sign of respect.
Yeah.
Military, when a commanding officer, when your superior walks in, you stand up. And it's not about what anyone else is doing. This is the choices that we're making. And our position is, if you're a business, your values are authentically American-like, we want you to call us.
All right. And listen, if you'd like more information about their products, go to authenticallyamerican.us.
I'll tell you, I was tested that day, and the reason I knew this is we were the last segment of the day, so we were able to sit down on the couch and chat for a while, and they're like, Dean, you didn't take the bait. We wanted it to get ugly. We wanted you to say all that kinds of nasty things about Nike. And it really went back to being intentional to our values and saying, okay, even those who we don't agree with, that have different opinions, we still need to treat them with dignity and respect. So, Glenn, let me start winding it down here a little bit, but one of the questions I get now that we're 3 years in, how are you doing? Dean, it's a big, bold vision to build this iconic American brand. How are you doing? So if you remember back to those logos that I shared, the most recent one was Under Armour. So we've benchmarked ourselves on how we're doing. So this is a visual of Under Armour's revenue from year one in 1996, 17,000 revenue. Fast forward 24 years later, they have grown each and every year, and they're now a $5 billion brand. Just an incredible success story. So this chart here, Under Armour's in the red, Authentically American's in the blue. And it's still very early, and we're still incredibly small. But you can see if you add it all up, I mean, we're 2x where Under Armour is. And I will tell you now, in the middle of a global pandemic, Americans more than ever are actively seeking American-made products. So we've got a long journey ahead of us for the next 20 years, but we're fired up. We're very fired up on where we're going and what we're doing. So let me pause here, because Glenn, one of the tragic flaws I have is, people are either oftentimes the glass is half full or the glass is half empty. And I'm neither one. I am just the ultimate optimist. Even when the glass is empty, it's overflowing. And we could talk for another hour or hours on end, Glenn, about all the challenges. How there were times when we thought we weren't going to hit payroll, and miraculously a customer check arrived, or another times that we thought we're going to run out of money and a new investor would come on board. It got to the point where I was even researching bankruptcy. I mean, never thought I would work it. So if anyone's ever shared with you that being an entrepreneur, starting a business from scratch is easy, I mean, they're not telling you the full story. I mean, the challenges that we've endured over the last 3 years have been incredible. And I've been talking for about 25 minutes. So what I thought I would do is share some of the lessons learned. You may be saying, so what? And there's a few of them that I've really taken away. So the first one, anyone that asks me, say, Dean, what's one piece of advice you would give? And I will tell you without hesitation, the number one is pursue your passion. I mean, find what you love, find what you're passionate about. And Glenn, I know our call started at 6:30, but I'd been in the office at 3. But it wasn't because my alarm went off. I'm just fired up. I'm energizing. It doesn't feel like work to me because I'm pursuing my passion. So second one, invest in people. And I can't tell you, Darrell Waltrip as an example, I talked about my team, the number of people over the last 3 years that have really, helped open doors, that have really made things happen for us. And it's really a two-way street, because if I'm just looking to go ahead and receive, it doesn't happen. But Marsha, we spent time talking, and, I'm hoping you saw that I was going out of my way, to help you. And to me, that's what it's all about, making investments in other people. So another one is building purpose. Glenn, I really wish I could have my entire team here and have them say why they're fired up to be part of the Authentically American team. And you would hear all of them, talk about the sense of purpose they feel and how they're fired up about having an opportunity to make a difference and create jobs. The next two really go together. But again, this is about relentless perseverance. And I've never been one that has shied away from hard work, but I'll tell you, over the last 3 years, I have never worked harder. And this was the story tied back to Ranger School, because it's been an incredible amount of work. And literally could work 24/7, could work, every week and still not have it all done. And this is where the last one is so important. And this is around keeping your priorities. And for me, it starts with my Christian faith. I talk about my family. I showed that picture and how important they are to me. And I also include fitness and a healthy, fit lifestyle. And I could arguably say there's not time for any of that, but it's being intentional and making a choice. And I'll show you a fun picture, because, try and build those family traditions. And we've got 4 kids who have always had monthly daddy-daughter dates and spent time. And now that my 3 oldest kids are away, I've got time with my youngest son. So my youngest son's name is Eskel. And we have EK Monday. And on Sunday or Monday morning, he's always, Dad, what are we doing for EK Monday? And, that's the picture on the right. He picked the idea and said, Dad, I want to dress like you. Let's go out and just have fun. And I'm telling you, we want to build these memories. The one on the left didn't touch as much on it, but we went shark fishing this July. And to me, that is what it's all about here, is really, pursuing your passion, pursuing your dream. But if there's no one there around to celebrate it with you, it's all for naught. So Glenn, how are we doing on time?
Oh, we're doing great. We're doing
Oh,
great.
good. So when you think about Authentically American, think about our ethos. We're a brand that celebrates patriotism. We're a brand that believes in the American worker, which is why everything we do is made here in the US. And we're also a brand that honors our American heroes, which is why, again, intentionally, we donate 10% of our profits to veteran and first responder charities. And Glenn, I'll share this because I often get asked after sharing at one of these discussions, well, Dean, I want to give it a try. I want to see that product. I want to see that sweat activated, or I want to try, your quarter zipper polo. So if you're able, I'm happy to share this discount code with everybody so you could go and share this. And I'm happy to provide discount codes because we have an Authentically American guarantee. And if for whatever reason you're not happy, you're not satisfied, we want you to send it back. We want to exchange it. And it is incredibly rare that anyone exchanges or asks for a refund. And again, that is founded in that belief in the American worker. And, many on this mastermind group, Glenn, I know are business owners. And the biggest hurdle we're overcoming, because a lot of our clients have worked with Land's End before, which is a strong company, but nothing is American made. They may wear a Nike polo. They may have a Gildan t-shirt. Again, if you look at the tag, where's yours made? None of it is American made. So a lot of people don't even realize there's an option. So, we have a lot of new clients that are interested in partnering with us. And again, if you're a charity or a nonprofit, or you have a charity or nonprofit that purchases stuff, we'd be happy to partner with you and provide you an amazing option. Again, we provide those programs at cost. So Glenn, I know you wanted to have discussion, and this is the part I'm looking forward to most because I'm a continuous learner. And there are so many things broken with our business. I love when people have a chance to share perspective because there's so many things. If I was smarter, had made better decisions, we'd be much further along than where we're at right now.
Well, we believe in learning from each other, and you've certainly given us many golden nuggets today. I was thinking early on when you were oh my gosh, Daryl Waltrip on with Fox and Friends with you.
Yes.
That what a powerful program if we were to have Mike Glendale with My Pillow, Daryl Waltrip, and Lee Greenwood along with you one day. That would be a heck of a panel. I
like the way you're thinking, Glenn. And I had an opportunity at a conference last October. Mike and I had an opportunity to meet, and we haven't finalized yet, but there may be some things we have in the works.
Well, I was just thinking there would be some real synergy there, and if we'll talk afterwards. I happen to think the former, if you're familiar, there was a clothing line that was made in Chattanooga, was called Buster Brown, and the president. The companies went under, but the last president who rose up the ranks there, a fellow by the name of Bruce Rice, actually lives here on Signal Mountain and is doing a little apparel work, uniform work. So there may be some synergy there.
Oh, yeah.
Plus, I've got another couple of ideas. But I was thinking, I love what you said about an entrepreneur. I always say, if you've never had a sleepless night, you're not an entrepreneur. You're lying. And I think
you've only had one, Glenn. I tell you, you're not.
Yeah, it's multiple. I know. I've been there. I know what it's like to make payroll, and I would send out sometimes 5,000 and 6,000 W-2s a year. And I can remember those gut-wrenching nights when I knew that payroll was approaching and there wasn't money in the account. But some way, miraculously, somebody would pay. What I was thinking about, a lot of people say, oh, but he's so darn lucky. And I happened to look at a quote from Gary Player, the famous golf player. The harder you work, the luckier you get. What are your thoughts about that, Dean?
That is not my quote, Glenn, but that is one absolutely I believe in. And I think so often, there is luck that plays a part of it, but, so often It just doesn't happen. I think, and when you are working, when you're putting in that effort, it happens. And right now we're very, fortunate, just the timing, and it's so tragic what we're dealing with right now with a global pandemic. But what it's caused more people to do is, back to our tagline, where's yours made? More people are looking at the tag and saying, okay, I want to make a choice. I want to choose American made. And that's what we're offering. And we have more exposure now, more awareness now than we've ever had.
Well, folks, it's that fun time of the program now. It's mastermind time, and it's great that I see some of our people that didn't get to introduce themselves. I tell you what, we're doing pretty good on time, so I'm going to do something I shouldn't do.
Uh-oh.
But those of you that got on a little late, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and give yourself a 12-minute elevator pitch and ask Dean a question if you have one. Sensei Corey Green, you want to step up to the plate?
I knew you were going to ask me first, Glenn. That's why my mic was already
And
unmuted.
how did that grand opening go this weekend that I didn't get to make?
It's okay. It was grand, of course. We had the radio there. We were cutting the ribbon outside. My wife and I were. We had people from the original school when we first opened in 2003 there. It was just a great experience. Everyone loved the food and the cake, and I'm actually going to be writing about it in someone else's book that's going to come out in the future about how to open a karate school. And my section will be how to have a grand opening. So there's that.
Well, Sensei, if you could share that with me, because we moved into our new facility in May, and we were planning a grand opening, but we've postponed it just given the global pandemic. But sounds like you had a great one and would love to learn.
Definitely. You know what an ultra low volume fogger is? That really actually helps quite a bit to put a lot of antibacterial, product out there, so that way it can sanitize the whole area if you have a lot of people. Just so you know. It takes a couple minutes, but it works really well. But anyways, it was just a great experience, and I'm at the end of that long journey of putting a lot of work in, like you just mentioned, and I'm really blessed, and I'm enjoying my new office, and it's just been a wonderful experience. It's surreal. We've been wanting to grow and scale up for a long time, and finally it was able to happen, but it happened right before COVID. And we moved in and we had to close down 2 weeks later after we opened. And it's okay. It was what I did instead of just, twiddling my thumbs was, once I was able to secure what I needed to secure, I invested into my business, and now it's going to pay dividends. And so this is the epicenter for a therapy that I've created of a martial arts school that is a traditional karate school, but we specialize with special needs students and have an athlete on the U.S. karate team with autism since 2016. There's a lot you can read about me, Dean. If you want, you can go to my website, read about all the historical things, CNN News, feature documentary, in the works for 10 years. We can keep going on and on. 43 national champions, first blind woman as well. I taught first girl with autism. I'm on the Athletes with Disabilities Committee for USA Karate. Mm-hmm. I've written a textbook, written a kid's book. I got another book coming out next month, and wrote another book earlier this year. And I drove for Uber for 2 years. So,
I've done it all, Sensei.
That Corey is a prime example of someone looking at one of the quotes that so many of you hear me repeating so often: with every adversity, with every heartbreak, with every setback, there's a seed of hope with the equivalent or greater benefit for those that look for it and take action. And you did.
Yes.
Let's see, Terry Drake from, whereabout in Texas are you, Terry? Terry, are you unmuted? Terry Drake, can you hear me? Yeah, it looks like he's connecting. Well, we'll come back to him in a minute. I see that Marcia has her sidekick over there, the designer. Hello,
Well,
you want to tell us about yourself right quick?
Well, Richard Harrison, artist and designer, and I'm always packed with questions on this particular subject because we're running into some things I never thought I'd run into, like the fact that the designers for some of our stuff can't read the blueprints that I did. When in my day, everybody could read blueprints, but now that it's Chinese, so they have to go to a program or an app or something to try to figure out if it's not on there, then they can do. they're running into a brick wall. But it's a new modern problem, and it's
Do you have a comment or a question you'd like to ask Dean?
oh well.
Great to see you again, Rich.
Yeah, Dean, have you found out if you're hiring people to work in your production plants? So I guess you're really going right to plants that are already in production. It seems to me that if you're hiring somebody that has less knowledge about what they're doing, and you can train them easier than if they come in already thinking they know how to do it. I've run into that when I was in the construction business, that my best crew were people that you would never even think would want to do construction, but they wanted to learn, and that attitude alone allowed them to be able to become very good at it. Whereas somebody that thought they already knew everything were not really mentally available for new techniques or changing the regular method that they had already learned.
Yeah.
I'm curious, did you run into that?
Well, Rich, you bring up a very important point, because right now, with less than 3% being made here and intentions for us to grow, one of the things we're going to encounter is limited capacity. And we're at arm length right now from our actual contract manufacturers. So I'm not doing the direct hiring into our facilities. What we really did was take a page out of Nike or Under Armour's playbook. All our manufacturing is contracted. So you remember those 12 US states. So I've visited, all of them, and I've been in the factories, but I haven't been involved in the hiring. But it's not going to happen in the next year. But as we look to 5 to 10 years out, we continue to grow. I mean, that training is going to be so critical, because in order to deliver on our promise for an amazing product experience, you have to have a skilled workforce.
Hey, Dean, I have a t-shirt. I have a question for you.
Yes.
You can actually make a t-shirt for me that when you spray it, it can change. You can make that for
We absolutely can, a custom one. And a second best sensei we're working with reached out, and he's creating a design. So I could link, if you're up and interested, Corey, I could link you up with my team. And it's amazing, because you get, instead of West Point, you get your brand, you get your logo and that inspirational message. And what's been fun about this, coaches and senseis love it, because they're like, Dean, it reinforces 2 great habits. 1 is exercise, and 2 is working hard.
That's right. I love it.
Well, Dean, I did want to make a comment about the your t-shirt. Every other Wednesday evening, we have marketing clinic, and we discuss things like the purple cow.
Yes,
and
great book.
Yeah, and it seems to me like the effort that you went to find your own purple cow, something that nobody else is doing, and that has the wow factor, is something that you've really hung your hat on. So my hat's off to you about that. But I did want to ask you a question about your leadership style. You were saying, and I'm sure justifiably so, that in 5 years, it's going to be because of the team that you put into place that will move you forward in with the large growth that you anticipate. So exactly how do you see yourself in there? I know you are the official cheerleader for the product. We can see that. But beyond that, talk a little bit about your own leadership skills and the way that you approach it.
So, Marcia, first of all, from a servant leadership standpoint, I've had some people say, well, Dean, what does that really mean? And I'm in incredibly early. And one of the things I do is say, okay, what does my team need from me to be successful? So that's practically how that plays out for me. Now to your question on what am I doing today? What am I going to be doing the next 5 years? So that has really changed. So when we first started, it was just my wife and I. And when we got our first office space, I was the one creating the strategy. I was the one selling. I was the one building the supply chain. I was also the one, cleaning the toilets, did it all. And actually, love to read. Glenn, I don't know if you guys have ever touched on this book, Traction. So they have a program called the EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And I could send you a condensed version, Glenn, if it's helpful to share. But the research that this gentleman, Gino Wickman, did said that most successful high-growth entrepreneurial companies have 2 people that are in a critical role. 1 is a visionary. 2 is an integrator. And what trips up a lot of startup companies is somebody that's trying to do both. And that was me. And 5 months ago, I was trying to do both. And I'm wearing one of our customer quarter zip, and Marcia, little things like how many stitches are in that logo? I would know that level of detail. And I was getting in our way because I've got tremendous capacity, but I lack focus. So one of the things that they talk about here are these rocks, which rocks are quarterly goals. And I'd be like, okay, guys, here's 25 things we're doing. And Sensei, you probably figure out that that doesn't work very well.
That's right.
So now it's like, here's 3 to 4 things. So now we've restructured a little bit, Marcia. So now I'm moving into more of the visionary role, and I've got somebody, our ops director, if you remember the picture of Andrew Polinsky, who worked at Amazon, who worked at Pepsi, Frito-Lay, just phenomenal from an ops and technology standpoint. That's the integrator. So when I have 25 ideas, he dismisses 24 of them and we pursue 1. And what that's allowing me to do now is be more of the face, more of the voice of Authentically American and spread the story. So what's fantastic with the timing right now and being invited more opportunities like this for podcasts, we've got more national media in the works. So just a lot of opportunities to really share our story.
Dean, I was thinking about in growing your business, one of the big success stories is the guy that accidentally invented Velcro.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, what's the easiest way for me to gain market share? So who are the biggest players that could use it? And I think he came up with 5. There was the automotive, there was the apparel, and medical, I think, with 3 of the big ones. I don't know what the other 2 were, if it was 5, but what are one of the big boys of your market, shall we say?
Well, this gets back to focus and, back to the client side, Glenn. We tried to be all things to all people. And I thought this was great at first because we would work with Fortune 500 companies. We'd work with middle market. We'd work with small businesses. We'd work with, other senseis and fitness centers and sports teams and high schools and colleges. And it was just across the board. And I'm like, isn't this great? And we started to realize that we were trying to be all things to all people and we had no focus. And back to Andrew, Marcia, your credit, Andrew, he did some data. And on the client side, there's a sales cycle. And, when we worked with companies who didn't know about us, that needed to learn about us, it was relatively long and months. Like to work with USAA, it was almost a year because they were so big. And what we really, Glenn, decided is based on data, when we work with a veteran-owned business, when we work with a veteran-operated business, when we work with a veteran-focused charity or a veteran university or retail, they very quickly get our story. They understand and appreciate it. So a 6-month cycle goes to 6 days or even 6 minutes. And one of the big ones we have right now that was pictured there was Team Red, White, and Blue. They're a veteran-focused charity. They have 200,000 members. And they have this iconic red shirt that has been with Nike. We're finalizing the details right now to switch to that. So that would be huge for us to have 200,000 people out there wearing an iconic red shirt that's authentically American.
That would be awesome.
Absolutely.
I have another question for you. Once you get to the point where you've got to your 1 billion in sales and you've mastered that goal, are you going to go into different endeavors like, Elon Musk and start solving other problems or start doing other things?
I would say likely, Sensei, absolutely not. I've got, my arms around what I need to do right now. And, assuming we get on the path of creating jobs and making a difference and leaving a legacy, I want my grandkids to say, Dad, you started that? And I don't need, multiple things. To me, we may never get to $1 billion, but even if we get close and we have, an impact, to me, that's going to be rewarding. So
right.
I don't believe there'll be, like 3 and 4 or 5 different things we do. This will be it.
Okay.
Dean, what you were saying about the Fox and Friends interview and how that you didn't take the bait. I'd like you to talk a little bit about something that I've really thought about for our brand is that I think that once we really get kicked off, one of my big jobs is going to make sure that Aisha's Friends is completely non-political, that it never gets drawn into all the political issues, even though we will be the most diverse line on the market.
Right.
And being able to proudly say that without getting drawn into the diversive conversation. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Marcia, first of all, it's not easy because everything right now is politicized. And, you know, for example, one of the things that we have done, not extensively, but we are in the campaign merchandise. And just the sheer fact that I've been on Fox and Friends, when I was on Yahoo Finance, I don't remember the exact question, but it was along the lines of, you know, Trump and everything you do is on that side. And I said, wait a second. You know what? We are in the campaign merchandise business, but we are apolitical. We've worked with both Republican and Democratic candidates, and what we stand for, being a brand that celebrates patriotism, believes in the American worker, and honors our American heroes, doesn't align with any one political party. It's an American ideal. And we've had to actively go out there and push that. And I've actually had, and this was shocking because in 3 years, there's not been a lot of criticism, but I've had a couple people reach out, one in particular, Marcia, that said, Dean, you're racist. And I was like, what? What in the world? And, you know, very intentionally followed up. And I said, why? Why in the world would you assume that? And they said, well, you were on Fox and Friends. Of course you're racist. It's all racist. And Marcia, I sent him my family photo. And I wish I could have been there to see the look on his face, because it was a very quick apology. He said, Dean, I apologize. I should have done my homework. And it's not so easy. It's not easy right now because everything was politicized.
You know, Dean, I was in the construction business. One thing I found out was the other people in your same business, say Nike or whatever, they can be behind some of this. We had run-ins in all kinds of odd ways with other construction crews in the city I was working in. And then even with the government in Atlanta, when I was doing work down there, find out some of the things that are underneath that you find out really just by being smart and thinking about it. But you will run into some of this when money's involved. You're starting to take business away from somebody.
Oh yeah.
It's a sad thing. I mean, you'd think they would just realize, oh, well, that works better. Why don't we do something like that? But instead, they put their energy into being negative and destructive. But that's something else you have to look out for. It really is.
Rich, to your point, the bigger we get, you know, the more sharper that magnifying glass is and the focus is, and people are going to go ahead and try and pick us apart.
Yeah.
That's right.
And that's one thing, Glenn, why I'm exhausted, but starting from a blank sheet of paper, I mean, there's no history. I mean, we own it all.
Well, I've been on live TV once or twice, and I can tell you what you did was amazing. You saved Darrell Waltrip in that one.
He didn't know what
he was playing around with the bait there, and you stayed focused on what you're doing, and that is the trick. That is it's very simple. Just stay focused on what you're doing.
And just the way that you spoke positive. I mean, that's your nature, but not letting, you know, I just really admire that, because one of the things that all of us here, we're based on a positive principle. That's why we're here to learn and lift each other up. But in this day and time, I think it's just really difficult to ignore the negative and just speak your true heart of the positive nature of your product.
I appreciate that, Marcia. And those of you that know DW, he's not one short of words.
You know, one of the early things I was taught, many of you know, I was with a Fortune 50 electrical manufacturer. For many years, I sold to the electric utility industry. More of it was the transmission and distribution equipment, but some of the generation equipment. But one of the things that they insisted, and they spent all kinds of time sending us to sales and marketing schools, but was that we never, ever said anything negative about our competition.
Right.
And we would point out the things we knew we had that our competition didn't have, and we would really, really stress it. But we never, ever said anything negative about our competition. And we had to be very careful because the corporation was involved in, if you go back and read the textbooks from back in the 60s, the Westinghouse Electric Corporation and the General Electric Company were the Department of Justice took them on for price fixing. So it was very crucial that anyone from Westinghouse or General Electric not ever mention pricing in the presence of each other. Dean, 3 questions I used to ask on the forerunner of this program, which was called Motivation Here. 3 questions, of which you've answered some of those, but one of them, what are your principles of success? How do you overcome adversity? And what is your definition of happiness, and how does one achieve it?
So which one do you want me to hit first, Glenn?
Well, let's go with your principles of success.
So I think this, Glenn, really starts to go ahead and get back to those 5 key takeaways, those lessons learned.
Mm-hmm.
And, one of the keys to success I talked about in investing in people.
Mm-hmm.
And this also ties into one of my greatest satisfactions is, we're relatively small right now, but you'd mentioned payroll and how, being able to meet payroll. To me, I take that as a tremendous responsibility that, the paycheck that everyone gets on Friday is meaningful, it's impactful. And if I don't do the best job I can, I put that payroll and that job and that paycheck at risk. And, to me, when we start small and continue to grow and, we go from 12 of us now to 100 to 1,000, it's the impact that we can have, because back to that family-like culture, we really want people to say, you know what, I could probably get a better paying job, but I love it here. This is a company that's committed to making a difference. This is a company that really looks out for me. And ultimately, I want to make a difference for them.
Awesome. And how do you overcome adversity?
I think you're going to hear a consistent theme, Glenn, because, very immaturely, very naively, early, younger days, my goal was to be the smartest one in the room. And I realized I'm not even the smartest one in my family. And I'm not the smartest one on this Zoom. And, I flipped that strategy and said, I want to surround myself with the smartest people I can. And anytime I'm facing adversity, anytime I'm facing challenges, there's a lot of introspection and thought that I do, but very quickly want to say, okay, let's get the right members of our team together to figure out how to solve it. And for example, when the global pandemic hit, Glenn, there was an uh-oh moment, like, are we going to survive? We've got manufacturing in 12 different states. What if they all close? We don't have that long a runway from a cash flow standpoint. And fortunately, our facilities, 10 of the 12, were able to remain open. But then a lot of our business on the client side was national sales meetings or trade shows. And that all dried up. And we're like, okay, how are we going to keep revenue coming? And we were really hit with a dose of perspective that, hey, we still have a consumer brand now and sales are coming through. Think if you're a charity and you're relying on donations, and we're at the highest unemployment since the Great Depression. Do you think they're getting a lot of donations? And this is where we pivoted, Glenn, because we've always said when we partner with a charity, we'll provide our goods and services at cost, but we didn't go out and actively seek. So we said, let's go out and actively reach out to some of these veteran charities that we've worked with. And they're like, Dean, you're going to help us raise money. You're not going to make any money, but you're going to help us raise money. And I will tell you, it helped us avoid any layoffs, during COVID. It helped us to go ahead and, build our brand. And we're reaping the dividends now, because now, there's thousands and thousands of new consumers that would not have been exposed to us if we would not gone out of our way to partner with charities.
Well, I think of, wasn't it Einstein that said that the opportunity is in the middle of a crisis?
Yeah.
And so you found that opportunity, and there have been so many businesses that have grown during the global pandemic because they look for that opportunity that Einstein referred to right in the middle of the crisis. He said it's not at the beginning, it's not after it's over, it's in the middle. Otherwise, you miss it. Christina, let's see. We'll get back to you in a minute, but there was one more of my trifecta questions there for you. Your definition of happiness and how does one achieve it, Dean? Which is I can tell is very important to you. You're such a family man, and you've got your values all straight, and you're unwavering. So, what is your definition of happiness, and how does one achieve it?
So we've talked 90% or more, Glenn, about our business, but that's not to me where happiness starts. And this gets back to the last of those lessons learned about remember priorities. Because to me, if three things are happening, number one, that I'm in a close walk with God in my Christian faith, that's going to make me happy. If I've got a great relationship with my wife and we've just celebrated 26 years and, this whole startup journey and the financial stress has really put a big strain on our relationship. But, if my marriage is strong and my kids look up to me and love me, and I'm never going to be a perfect dad, but they really appreciate the time we're able to spend together. And if I'm able still to be healthy and active and have a fit lifestyle, to me, if all three of those are there, Glenn, then everything else takes care of itself. And, inherently there's challenges every day. You and I talked early to get the tech set up. There's a couple things I had to take care of. So there's challenges that are always going to be there. But if those three for me are in a good place, I'm happy and everything else takes care of itself.
I happen to think of something I touched on when we were chatting earlier this morning before the program started. I mentioned Major Anthony Burke that I had on the other program, probably 6 years ago. He was one of the first of 12 F-16 pilots circling New York City post 9/11. And one of his things is basically in the corporate world, teaching teams how to employ the skills of an F-16 pilot in the workplace. And one of the things he talks about was I forget, it's not the situation room, but it's the room that the pilots go in before they fly a mission. And there may be similar things with other branches of the military, but they would go in the briefing room. Okay, the briefing room. There they would go in. They would all be briefed. Here's what to do. Everyone understands that. They go out. Immediately when they come back, the Velcro ranks come off. They place that on a table outside of the room. They go in, and it doesn't matter whether you've got a 5-star general in there or just a private in there. If they were involved with that mission, anything that they saw that went wrong, it's their job to point it out and discuss it. And he mentioned the point of they had a general in there one morning that had flown the mission with him, and came back and said, but General, I noticed that you didn't put, I forget what the device was, your bomb safety lever was not locked in, which at X number of miles from the base that they're landing at, it needs to be locked so it can't automatically, by chance, be fired. And so I guess that you probably have that kind of open discussion with your employees and your management team, correct?
We do, Glenn, and this is a tribute to Andrew. Yeah, because we want to build a culture of accountability. And right now we have a stand-up meeting every morning at 9 o'clock where everyone gathers in our break room. And it's a quick 15 minutes. And right now, as a startup business, there's equal part of, okay, here's sustaining the business, and then here is improvements that we need to make. And when you become more of a mature business, for example, when I was at Mars, a $40 billion global company, you know, most of the focus was on sustaining the business. So we go around, Glenn, and say, okay, hey, everyone's got their day-to-day responsibilities, but what are you doing to improve the business? What are those special projects, those initiatives that we've talked about that you're doing to go ahead and enable us to be successful, not just today, but 3 months from now, 6 months from now? And, you know, that's the culture of accountability that we built, that, you know, everyone's there.
Well, I can see that sincerity, and I like the comment you made earlier. How are you doing? In fact, I use that sometimes with my coaching clients and then with people that I meet and I want to really engage with and have time, except I'll add another word in there. Dean, how are you really doing? And it's amazing the difference in the response versus how are you today, which
Right.
is just typical BS, uh, just a nice way to greet someone, but it has no depth to it. And I see a lot of depth to you. I see a lot of depth to the culture that you've created with your company. And with that in mind, how would you describe the culture of your company?
So it's good, Glenn, but nowhere near where I want it to be, because, you know, I pictured the 3 members on our leadership team, and some people counseled me and said, Dean, nobody is going to be more on board. Nobody's going to have more ownership than you because you're the founder. It's that founder's principle. And, you know, my level of commitment's here, but I will tell you, those 3, Andrew and Sarah and Pat, I mean, they're not far behind me. There is nothing I believe they wouldn't be willing to do to enable us to be successful. And Glenn, we really need that type of embracing high level of engagement broadly everywhere, but we're probably only 70% of the way there. There are a few question marks that we have. You know, are people truly on board? So that's what we're working through. And, you know, this has been a real helpful tool. You know, they've got an accountability matrix. They've got, you know, tools that help making sure that you're making the right people decisions.
You know, I like Simon Sinek's book, Discovering Your Why. And I believe
Yes,
maybe you've discovered your why. People don't care what you do, but they do care why you do it.
no doubt about it.
And
Mm.
anyone else that would like to ask Dean a question? Christina, I see you're unmuted there. Have you got a question?
I do. I have a couple of things to say. I love the aspect, Dean, that you have a servant leadership heart. I can see that in you, and I associate very much with that. Being in a cleaning business is very much a servant's role to play. So, and I get that's part of what makes me happy, is being able to see joy on someone else's face when I finish a job. But you also made a comment about don't worry what other people are doing, but it's about your choices that you're making. So I want you to, I will ask, will you expound on that a little bit? Because like, especially in the adolescent phases of, for us, we started out kind of comparing, maybe not comparing, but looking at our competition. So whenever I heard that comment, it's kind of like, should we be looking at our competition and seeing what we're doing in a new business area? But like, what exactly, whenever you make that statement, do you mean specifically in not paying attention to what others are doing in a business world?
And Christina, it's a great question. And what I don't want the takeaway to be is, you know, don't worry about what your competition is doing. Because,
Okay.
you know, we need to do that. We arguably need to do even more of that. But a lot of this is more along the lines is, you know, it's about us. And for example, apparel sales in the US are 300 billion. 300 billion. So, you know, I don't know who the mathematician here, but if you do the math, for us to be $1 billion brand, we only need to please 1/3 of 1%. So it doesn't matter, Christina, if you're in the cleaning business, if you're in the karate business, you're in the apparel business, you know, my belief is you have to find something unique, something differentiated, so that people are going ahead and willing to go ahead and pay you money for your goods and services. So that's really, Christina, where our proposition has been. And that in turn now, as we're growing, you know, what are our clients telling us? what are our consumers telling us, and really starting to listen to them for feedback. And again, there is some competitive, but really it's all about what we're doing and how we're taking care of our customers, because we want to build lifetime customers.
Right.
And if they purchase, if you're a business owner and every July you have a big meeting and every year you're doing that, that's like an annuity for us.
Right.
Every month, people are coming back. That's the best business we have. So to summarize, there is a little bit of competitive, but it's more important about us and how do we really create something unique and differentiated that's a compelling story.
Awesome. Thank you. I also have one more question. Do you take special requests for designs? I have a son. I saw on your website that you have some Navy things. My son will be going into the Navy on the 19th. So is that an option?
So I get quite a ribbing from my West Point classmates saying, Dean, you traitor. How could you have a shirt that says beat? I can't even say it. And the response is, at the end of the day, we're all on the same team. And even when the Navy, buys American made, it helps create jobs.
Absolutely.
And back to Sensei's question, we do have a custom program, and we've really tried to make that as easy and streamlined as possible. So Sensei, for example, you're not going to have to order 500 or 1,000 or even 100. If you wanted these shirts custom, it can be 24. So we've had, businesses, and this is the client side, whether you have a karate studio, whether you have a cleaning business, whether you have, any type of business, we can help give you the opportunity to make an American-made choice.
Hey, I wanted to add something what she was saying about, a competition. Yeah, you want to know what they're doing to such a degree, but some really good advice that really helped me about a year ago is someone told me to stay in my lane. And when I stayed in my lane and focused on what I was doing, like hyper-focused, then everything started to really fall into place. And I think that's what you have to do. If you just, no matter what industry you're in, makes sense, right? Stay in your lane.
I've struggled with that, Corey, struggled with focus. And, it's trying to get back, instead of 25 things, here's the top 3 things we're doing.
Right.
Rip, did I see you unmuted a few minutes ago?
Yes.
Did you have a question?
Dean, I had I volunteer at a local animal shelter.
Yes.
And periodically we have events when we get back to some semblance of normal where we have t-shirts. And so it wouldn't be me, but I was wondering if the information that you gave with your email and phone number would be what I need to pass on to the people that would be involved in that, or if there was someone else or some other way I needed to get in contact.
Let me do this, Trip. I'm going to take the piece in that last slide and copy it into the chat. And it has my email, has my mobile number, and it'll ultimately be my team, Trip, that will work the details. But to make it easy, just you can send an email introduced to me, and having worked at Mars, which has a massive pet care business, love to hear the pet shelter option. And that's a great example where when we partner with a charity like that, we're going to make American made affordable.
Cool. Thank you.
Dean, I got a question.
Up from the yacht.
Yeah. My goal is to get this little robot kit into as many hands of young people as possible. But the truth of the matter is my electronics comes from China. In order to keep this at $49.99, I have to get the components as least expensive as possible. And I'm very for made in America, and I am cutting the plywood, I'm laser cutting this chassis, but that's really the only thing that is sort of made in America. All the electronics has to come from China. How do you sort of handle that situation where
where price is very important as far as having it affordable for anyone.
Exactly.
And so how can you have it made in America and keep the price down?
It is a great question. and one that we have wrestled with because we're very true about our passion for creating jobs, and that's tied to our mission. But at the end of the day, we're a for-profit business, and our pricing is very competitive. We're not greedy, but to give an example, this T-shirt that I showed earlier, this is, I don't know if it's Texas cotton or some cotton in the Southeast, but 100% of it is that way. If you saw the socks I was wearing on Fox and Friends, they're fun, patriotic designs, Carolina cotton, knit in Carolina. So that is ultimately our goal, Aaron, that every thread, every button, every piece is American made. But some of our performance fabric, our polos, for example, absolutely, you could go visit the factory in California where they're made. So they meet the legal obligation to be American made because the majority of the cost, but that fabric's not imported because it would be a $120 polo. And back to you being the joke homeless, you're not able to pay that. We've got to have a competitive price. So right now it's probably over 90% of what we have is not only cut and sewn and produced here in the US, but the majority of the fabrics. But the goal is if we're at 90 now, 5 years from now we grow, we'll be at 93, 94, and we just keep inching forward. And then 20 years from now, I want to be able to make the statement that we truly are American made. But if we don't have a successful business, Aaron, we won't have that discussion in 20 years.
And my goal, you talk about creating jobs, as much as we can bring manufacturing back, a lot of that is going to be automated. And so my goal is sort of to train those workers that are going to work on those machines. Someone has to design those machines. Someone has to fix them. Someone has to program them. And, I don't believe our schools are doing enough in that area. And that's, again, part of my goal is, sort of train the future workers or get our young kids interested in that type of work that, is going to be very well paying in the U.S. as we bring, manufacturing back. But, anything that's sort of labor intensive, it's going to be very hard to,
it's 9:29. I saw Bob Ritchie that you're unmuted there. Have you got something real quick to say?
Well, a question. I came here to Nashville via a job with Redcap. Redcap is a manufacturing company, and I don't know, have you reached out to them? Because when I first moved here, we had a plant over in Sparta, and I used to go run up and down between Nashville to Sparta and a few at Russellville, Kentucky, and all sorts of places. And there were manufacturing plants, apparel manufacturing plants, all over the place. But on some of these big retailers, I was talking to one of the owners of one plant in Smithville, and they went out of business because of Sears. Sears had a great reputation of buying from them, and then they had in their contract, if they didn't sell it, they dumped it back on them. And these people had no way of, getting those goods out back then. And so a lot of the manufacturing in the state of Tennessee used to be with apparel manufacturing. Genesco, basically used to manufacture all their stuff here in the U.S. kind of thing. So have you reached out to them? And also, have you looked into possibly some of these other plants that may still be sitting idle, but still has some sewing machines and, needs to work?
Our time is up. For those that would like to stick around, I don't know. I don't want to impose on Dean, but if you can stick around for a few minutes after I end the recording, we'll have a little backstage time if anyone would like. It's kind of that after the meeting. Folks, it's been a pleasure being with you. I love you. I believe in each and every one of you. And remember, your day will be just as good as you visualize. I'm out of here.